For over 15 years, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel, as well as all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. At this time, next week, the first round of the NHL Draft will have been concluded. We will be eagerly anticipating rounds 2 through 7. We are in the thick of the silly season now that the 2025-26 on ice season has concluded. Congratulations to the Carolina Hurricanes, of course, but we are now in the midst of everybody focused on draft, free agency, trades, and we're all going to spend lots of time on that on this morning's edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Along with Dave Manouk, I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here for the next couple hours. Going to delve deep into the Winnipeg Jets. Lots of news, lots of scuttlebutt, lots of rumors, lots of chatter around the Winnipeg Jets. We will separate fact from fiction, do our best to do so over the next couple of hours. Danielle Bain from TSN is set to join us in about 30 minutes' time. Dave Manouk, good morning to you, my friend. Nice to see you on this, thus far, bright and sunny Saturday morning.
Thanks, Drew. Welcome. It's good to be back. And, it's funny when we're in the thick, you talk about the thick of the regular season. We're doing shows that feels like every other day. And then now we're in our once a week mode. Once a week. We're not a daily show. We're more of a weekly show. And there's a lot to talk about. It is amazing how, you're right. It is the off season now, but it has been a newsy sort of week in Jets land. So there's plenty to discuss. And of course, the big news of the day was the retirement of Jonathan Toews and ending his 16-year NHL career. He'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Of that, there is no doubt. And of course, that was a pretty nice ceremony at the complex that was named after him.
Yeah, anytime you can retire in a building that's been named after you for your on-ice accomplishments, you've done something pretty good in your hockey career. And of course, that is what Jonathan Toews has done. And he gets to retire on his terms. So, I mean, that is, I think, not very many people necessarily get to do that. That's all, you're always better off leaving a year too early than a year on your own terms than a year too late on someone else's, which is a life lesson that a lot of people forget about and don't necessarily take to heart as being a good course of action. But Jonathan Toews returned last year, as we all know. He plays the year for the Winnipeg Jets, a year that did not go the way anybody hoped that it would. Mm-hmm. But at the end of his career now, he can look back and say, I finished my last season in the NHL having played all 82 games. I think he played 82 if I'm not mistaken.
He did.
Right.
For the first time since 1819.
Exactly. So he finishes it on his terms. Again, not the way anybody anticipated, and nobody thought that that the Jets were going to plummet in the standings to the manner that they did. He gets his day yesterday, and it's good for him, and it's nice, and it sort of puts a ribbon on what has been an absolutely stellar NHL career. Like you mentioned, a Hall of Famer, no doubt, one of the best leaders the game has ever seen, one of the best clutch performers the game has ever seen. And you could feel, you were in the room there yesterday at the Jonathan Toews Sportsplex, or whatever the hell it's actually called. And you can maybe describe for the audience the vibe, the emotion, the feeling that was in the room yesterday as not, again, this isn't breaking news by any stretch, as sort of one of the worst kept off-season secrets finally came to fruition.
Yeah, the only reason why you thought that maybe he was going to stick around was because he dealt with the hardest season that he was going to have to deal with, the condensed Olympic schedule. And he played all 82 games. And one of the biggest thanks he gave, and he gave lots of thanks throughout the course of the morning, but was to the training staff, both Chicago's and Winnipeg's, in terms of, helping them and, talking about how unheralded they are and the work that they do to keep players, kind of on the straight and narrow. And he talked about this idea of having to be selfish and really just, single-minded of purpose and focused on themselves and focused only on the ability to play hockey and not really worrying about anything else. So, it was a really nice environment. I mean, he had, I think there were, Scott Brown, who's the communications director, said there were over 100 people or 100 people that were there. Friends, family, the mayor showed up. I mean, it was, thankfully he didn't give a 10-minute speech, but the mayor did show up, and it was just interesting to see, like, to hear the words that Toews had to say, hear what Mark Chipman had to say about Jonathan Toews. And of course, afterwards we heard from Scott Arneal and Adam Lowry. So yeah, it was definitely a nice environment. I saw someone ask if Kevin Cheveldayoff was there. He was there. He just didn't speak. There were lots of, Marty Johnston was there. There were a lot of people there. So, really, you're not speaking to everyone in the room, but it was a nice way to kind of end his career, because the way his previous career ended, obviously, when he had to, end the season with the Hawks, and I don't remember. I don't remember games he played that in this final season in Chicago, but it was definitely not close to a full season. And then, his little journey of almost 2+ years trying to kind of deal with his health issues and get back to
53 games was his last year in Chicago.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was going to say, 58. So, okay. But excuse me. But I think, he had to kind of get back to that normality of life. Forgot about like playing hockey, just trying to get back to some sort of, his semblance of his previous self, which was a healthy person. So he was able to do that. He was able to come back, and, he spoke about, how important it was to play in Winnipeg, right? I mean, it's not like he is not a Winnipegger. He knows, what the Jets mean to this market. And I think that I think the only thing, if you talk about regrets for him, obviously the way the season went was a regret, because I really think, he wanted to be involved. He wanted to be experiencing a whiteout. I think that there was a big part of him that was like, that was a big motivator. Don't get me wrong. The $5.5 million that he deposited into his bank account, not exactly a tough pill to swallow, but at the same time, I think that would probably be the biggest thing. But yeah, he spoke about it a lot throughout the course of the day.
Well, here's what he had to say about Winnipeg and the fan base here in Winnipeg.
Lastly, thank you to our loyal Jets fans in the city of Winnipeg. There's something special about being from this city. I'm so proud to be from Winnipeg, and thank you guys for making this year so special. I hope I represented you guys well over the years, so thank you very much.
I know he talked about his hairline to start the press conference. He's got a pretty good hairline still, for getting up there into his late 30s. I don't think he's got anything to be upset about hairline wise. It can go a lot quicker, a lot earlier. So Jonathan, great career, all that. Your hairline is still going strong, my man. So you can still grasp onto that as you transition to the next phase of your career. Speaking of the next phase, he did address what is next for Jonathan Toews.
I mean, for sure. I don't think I'm one of those guys who's going to jump right into, a job and scouting or coaching or whatever it may be right away. I think it's been healthy for me, at least a couple years that I didn't play, to get away from it completely and just feel what that feels like. It's obviously pretty kind of earth-shattering for you, and it's been your whole life since you're a young kid. But I think it was a really good thing for me to kind of step outside a little bit. But going forward, I think I'll always definitely at least have one foot in, one foot out. And I think can never ignore or overlook how much the game of hockey has meant to me and what it's done for me and my family and how it shaped me as a person. And I think ultimately that's what it's about.
He seems comfortable in his own skin, that this is how it's coming to an end, that this is how, his career, this is the next chapter in his life. For the last, probably 35 years of his life, he, since he was a wee lad, he's been a hockey player. That is his identity. But he does seem, and I'll give him credit, because it's not, at least yesterday, and there's still a long roadway to go, he seemed comfortable in transitioning to the next chapter in his life, which is a nice thing to see from a professional athlete, because they often do struggle in turning that page to whatever's next.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of putting it, Drew. I mean, look, you're right. He talked about the structure of his life. He always knew what it was like, right? Like he woke up, went to the gym, got on the ice, probably went golfing in the summer I'm talking about. And then, he in the season, exactly how, it's very rigid. You don't really have a lot of freedom. Well, I mean, like unlike 99.9% of the population, he's now got the freedom to do whatever he wants. And, I'm sure with guys who are driven like that, it's hard just to kind of sit still. And so you'll sit still for a bit, but you can't really retire at 37.
You still hope you have a long, viable, flourishing life. You got another hopefully 50 plus years ahead of you.
Well, and I think that he's probably got something to share with the game. That's the other thing, right? I mean, he's a guy who's clearly a teacher. Like I said to him, it was more of a joke, like imparting his wisdom to guys like Scheifele and from Scheifele to Jagger, because it was kind of like that idea of leaving a mark on everyone. Mm-hmm. And he tried to downgrade it. He actually gave Mark Scheifele a pretty good compliment. He basically said the young guys just need to follow what Scheifele does. He said Lambert, Jagger, those guys follow Scheifele around for a summer, and your everything will improve because of his sort of commitment to the game,
training, dedication.
That's right.
Exactly. Doing the things in the off season to allow you to flourish. Individually, maybe not necessarily on a team basis last year, but allow you to flourish during the on ice campaign of the season.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think what it comes down to though is that he's going to take some time for himself, and then I'm sure some team, whether it's the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, Mark Chipman made a joke about Toews coming back, pulling a Tom Brady, and he wouldn't be upset with that if he decided to still play some games. But realistically, I'm sure Mark, based on how glowing.
I never understood that joke though, because Brady never came out of retirement.
Well, it's funny. Like I think he
meant Aaron Rodgers.
That's what I was thinking too, because I was like in my head, I was like, I don't remember Brady. Maybe Brady talked about retirement and then never did.
Well, Brady left the Patriots. He went to Tampa Bay for 2 years.
Yeah,
not to criticize Mark Chipman on that one. I know obviously what he was getting at, but as a Brady stan, I'm like, no, Brady played all his entire career. He never actually took a pause or anything along those lines.
Yeah, but anyways, I think it was more the concept than the reality of the actual parallel there, Drew. But I think what it comes down to though is that I think whether it's the Jets, the Hawks, someone in some capacity, they'll be offering him an opportunity to stay in hockey, and I'm sure he'll be interested in doing it. And you see it more and more with former players. I mean, look at Matt Sundin in Toronto, or there's obviously the Shane Doan talk in some market, whether it's this one or another one. So
it's interesting because I saw somebody in the chat already said, whatever happened with that. So we know that he came to visit Winnipeg, and that's been the sort of the end of it. It hasn't progressed anywhere. I don't know if there's an offer and he's evaluating or what the situation is, but it is something that sort of was a story and was a blip, and then it sort of fizzled out. So I don't know if that ship has sailed. But it's interesting that, it seemed like the Jets were going to bring in some reinforcements to the front office. They still might, not to say that it's completely off the table, but nothing has sort of developed and nothing further has materialized on that. Usually we get an opportunity, I mean the collective Jets media gets an opportunity to talk to Kevin Cheveldayoff.
We're talking
after the first round, but maybe even before the draft, maybe before Friday.
We're talking to him next week.
There you go. So that'll be a question. I'm sure that'll be brought up next week. Is what is the status of a Shane Doan or of a reinforcement to the front office? That'll be talked about next week. You'll hear a lot more from the Jets general manager. He'll meet the media before the draft. He'll meet the media after day one of the draft, and then he'll meet the media again at the conclusion of day two of the draft on Saturday, probably late afternoon will be when that takes place.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's funny. I feel like he talked after round one, to be honest with you.
And and he doesn't talk after round two? Is
no,
it just Hillier that talks after round two?
Hillier after round two.
Or sorry, not round two, day two.
Day two. Yeah.
Okay. Well, in any event, you'll hear from some voices that you haven't heard in a little while next week vis-a-vis the Winnipeg Jets. One voice that we haven't heard from a lot recently is Jets head coach Scott Arneal. He spoke about Jonathan Toews and the impact that Jonathan Toews had last year in the 1 year that he was a member of the Winnipeg Jets. This clip's a little longer, so you can grab a coffee and settle in for a couple minutes to hear what the Jets head coach had to say about Jonathan Toews. And don't worry, folks, we're going to get to Connor Hellebuyck throughout the course of the next hour and 45 minutes.
We're only having one guest on because Drew and I have lots to talk about in
lots
the
to talk
in the
about.
latter
Danielle's
half.
going to join us in 15 minutes, and then we're going to get into all the rumors, all the scuttlebutt, everything along those lines. So plenty more to come after we sort of put a bow on Jonathan Toews' career. Here's Scott Arneal on Jonathan Toews.
For me, obviously, it goes back to the World Juniors, him going in that shootout. I remember that. And kept going and kept scoring. It was so impressive. Then to see him as a young player to come in the NHL and dominate like he did. That fire that you saw, I giggled when he talked about Q, making him captain as a young 20-year-old, and it was because of that fire and that drive that he had. And I remember I think it was Cup number 3 when he was. They were in a series and he was getting so mad, and Seabrook coming over the penalty box and settle him down. I would have loved to heard what that conversation would have been about, but being able to have an opportunity to work with him this year and to coach a first ballot Hall of Famer, a guy that has the resume that he has, just to be around him every day. You heard him talk. He's a tremendous speaker, and that's how he is. Whether I was talking to him or he was talking to his teammates, he's so appreciative of the game. His teammates, everybody that he's been able to work with over the years. That he's just a true pro, and he's just a genuine person. And I feel so fortunate that I've been able to have the opportunity to coach him. And obviously, we wish to have been into the playoffs and got to see that part of him. That we obviously know that he's such a competitor in the playoffs as well as what he does during the regular season. But just an honor to be around him, and obviously I had a talk with him last week when he was going down this road, and it was great just to have those moments to spend with him.
As much as a hockey player can have a legacy, what do you feel his legacy is?
Wow, I think that as the game has changed over the years. Through maybe going through the 80s, 90s of the offense, and then the kind of the shutdown defense that kind of came in and decided where that. The one thing about Jonathan Toews is that he can play in any era, and I think that's because of his drive, obviously his skill set, but that compete and that drive that he has to win, to not to finish second, I think is just something that could play in any era, and I think that's just his legacy of just being a great leader, great example, and leading leading by example every shift. I think that's just who he is and who he was, and he never changed, and even right up until this season, it's always been he's always been driven that way, and just he has so many people that you see it around the league, you hear it over the years, how many guys that Jonathan Toews was their hero. He was their guy that they looked up to, and there's guys playing the NHL that still talk about Jonathan Toews, and I think that that's just says a lot about who he is and what he's done.
What do you think the residual for him will be in this franchise, in that dressing room?
Well, he's been Winnipeg Jet. He's been a part of that, and you know what? We feel that our dressing room is real tight, and we talked last week. It was what he said. He really felt at home. He really enjoyed our group and being around them. But I think that those conversations when they're out for dinner, when they're in practice in the dressing room, things that come out of his mouth, that's the stuff that those guys will, I think, absorb. And I think those are things that that will help our group continue to grow. And I know that for Adam, Josh, Scheif, those guys as leaders, as captains, just to be around a guy like that is just a great example, and I'm sure that they've taken a lot away from this year.
That's Jets head coach Scott Arneal talking about the impact of Jonathan Toews in the dressing room last year. Obviously, his on-ice impact wasn't what anybody wanted. Mm-hmm. The Jets organization was fooling themselves a little bit about what they were hoping for, what they were expecting after 2 years off the ice for Jonathan Toews. But undoubtedly, based on what Scott Arneal had to say there, and based on just his presence was a significant one for the Winnipeg Jets and the players to just try and sponge off of him, to learn from him. You're never too old to learn. No matter how many years you've been in this game, you can always pick something else up from somebody else, another way they go about things that you maybe haven't considered it before. And I think that is resonating from the comments that Scott Arneal had regarding Jonathan Toews and the end of his playing career announced officially yesterday.
And one thing I was going to say, Drew, to be accurate, fair, and balanced, Tom Brady did retire. If you remember, he released that statement in February of 22. He released a statement saying he was stepping away from the game. And then 40 days later, he came out of retirement and then joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
And that's when he won the Super Bowl that first year with the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
I mean, that one part I remember vividly, but I just don't remember him stepping away for 40 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I it's funny. Like, I wasn't sure. And then you were so confident. I was like, oh, maybe I'm misremembering. And I was like, okay, fine. Maybe Jimmy was wrong. But then I did fact check, Drew. That's what we do on the show. We fact check. And sure enough, he did release a statement and then reversed it 40 days later.
Well, I'd like to formally apologize to Mark Chipman, the entire True North Sports and Entertainment organization, to Tom Brady. I'm sure they're all listening, and now hopefully the lawyers' letters.
You're getting a strongly worded letter there.
Yeah,
Drew.
hopefully the lawyers' letters will be put back in the drawer and will not end up costing me an arm and a leg for misspeaking on this here program this morning. Okay, well, there you go. Thank you for fact checking me on that front there, Mr. Minuk. In terms of, again, back to next year for the Winnipeg Jets, there was always the question, because, where did Jonathan Toews fit in? If you wanted to come back, the organization sort of seems like was going to have him back, and almost there was not an obligation, because that's too strong of a word, but this almost opens up a spot, I think, for the Winnipeg Jets. I think there's actually a benefit for him deciding to hang up his skates yesterday, or at the end of the season when he did, because now it does open up a spot. I don't know that there was a clear spot for Jonathan Toews to be on this roster without it actually blocking the development and the opportunity for a younger player. So I think strictly from an on-ice perspective, face-off circle notwithstanding, because we know how good he was in that area.
Top three in the league.
And that's, so face-off circle notwithstanding, I do think that this is probably to the benefit of the Winnipeg Jets for the 26-27 season.
Well, I mean, I think it comes back down to a few things. I think the idea, when we heard people saying, the Jets need a 2C and a 4C, I think one of the things that it illustrates is, and it's something to quote Drew Mindell, it's that the Jets' fourth line needed an identity, and they needed to be fast, and they need to be hard to play against. And so whether it's Morgan Barron as your 4C, although I think he'll be on a line with Adam Lowry, but whether it's Morgan Barron as your 4C or Danny Zhilkin alongside Cole Koepke, I mean, you're going to have probably a speedy, defensively responsible, occasionally maybe score a goal here or there, fourth line. And I think you're going to get your identity. You're going to have a fast fourth line, which is one that's going to be defensively responsible. Guess what you need? A fourth line that's defensively responsible and can keep up and play the style of game, because that's what we've been talking about. The Jets style of game took a hit because they were supposed to play a fast game, and then they lost all their speed. And then
they're supposed to play a fast game, but they only had slow players that they brought in last year.
Well, that's what I mean. Nyquist, Toews, Pearson, Shen. I mean, well, not that Shen was brought in last year, but you know what I mean. Like they were not a fast team at all. No. So I mean, yeah, it didn't really seem like, if you wanted to get back to quote Winnipeg Jets hockey, the hockey they played a season prior to last, then you were going to need to go back to being a faster team. And part of that is getting younger and allowing a guy like Zhilkin to get into the NHL and earn his spot. You don't just give him a spot, but earn a spot. I mean, look, he was regarded as a top center in the American Hockey League. And I know it doesn't translate to being a top center in the NHL, of course, but I think that a guy like Zhilkin is ready to take that step forward and seize that sort of role. So I think there's probably that's probably going to be a good thing for the Winnipeg Jets organization, because again, you're going to go back, because I just think that for Toews, despite how glorious a career he had, it was time for him to hang up the skates and move on to something else.
No question about it. It was the writing was on the wall, and I mean, I agree with everything you said. It now allows the Winnipeg Jets to sort of go back to the drawing board a little bit and recapture how they want to play. And that's something we've talked about. That's been a theme of this offseason. That's been a theme of the last number of months that we've talked about, is how does this Winnipeg Jets team sort of go back to being the team that they were when they had their most success. Now, I don't expect under any circumstances that next year they're going to all of a sudden become a President's Trophy winning team again. I just think that ship has probably sailed, but they need to be able to go out there and know how they want to play night in, night out. And that means Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, all of these guys, the superstars on the team, know that they have to have the support behind them, so that they can't be freelancing because and almost cheating the game. And we saw them at times last year cheating the game because I think they felt they had to. They felt that they had to because they had no support behind them. Now, I don't necessarily know what that support behind them is going to look like this next year. But at least they need to find the identity. If you have an identity that everyone is playing with 1 through 12, then you know how you're supposed to play yourself. If one line is supposed to be this, and then the second line is supposed to be that, but they can't do it, and the third line is supposed to be something else, it doesn't really work very well in terms of making sure you have what you need to be. So that's where I think the Jets organization needs to figure things out. Keep going. Danielle just texted me, so you talk for a second. And I'm going to he has the link for.
Sure. Well, why don't we just end with Jonathan Toews talking about what he's going to miss from the game? We started the segment. This has been a Jonathan Toews segment. I mean, again, like I said, it's a Hall of Fame career, 3 Stanley Cup, Conn Smythe, gold medals. I mean, the guy represented Winnipeg on the biggest stage, and you can tell how much he loves the hockey and loves the game. But this is what he's going to miss about not being in the NHL anymore.
Well, like anyone who retires says, I mean, being in the locker room, being with the guys, it gets truer the more you spend time outside of the locker room, and you realize how rare that is to have that brotherhood and that fraternity that you're part of. And I think that's what's special about the game of hockey. It's such a team-oriented game, and there's no other sport like it. So, I mean, that's an easy answer right there, and I think you'll always miss the moments where you're kind of at the height where all your hard work and your dedication and you're studying the game and putting all the pieces together kind of culminates and things happen on the ice in an effortless way, and you just have that feeling of like, hey, this is what it's supposed to feel like when everything's just clicking. So I'll definitely miss that. And at the end of the day, as I said on stage there, I've been so lucky to play in 2 incredible hockey markets with the best hockey fans in the world. And there's nothing like scoring a goal and giving people that feeling that you felt, that feeling of inspiration when you were a kid. And there's nothing more special than that. So I'm going to miss a lot of things, but that's kind of what comes to mind.
So there you go.
Sorry, I'm just...
That's all good. Well, why don't we...
we get Danielle on coming up here momentarily. So they'll tell you what, good point. We'll go take a first commercial break. Normally we go commercial-free in hour number 1, but sometimes we have to pivot a little bit. We'll pivot to the commercial and then bring in Danielle on the other side. Drew Mindell, Dave Manouk, Saturday morning. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local, legal, and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre.
Boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh, boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door, and you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca. For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
We're back on the Saturday morning edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Manouk with you. We're thrilled to welcome to the program our good friend from TSN. From the sidelines to the ice, she does it all. Danielle Bain joins us on the program. Danielle, good morning. Nice to see you. How are things? Can't hear you. Not sure if the mic isn't working, but we'll let
She's muted. I think she's muted.
No, still can't hear you, Danielle. Maybe you want to jump out. And now we
you're
hear
good.
you.
Yes.
You guys, I was saying that I had a chuckle on your latest tweet talking about my hit at the Rum Hut. I have finally experienced what the Rum Hut at Princess Auto Stadium is all about. So you're right. I have recovered since. Didn't know if I would be alive to tell the tale, but we're here. And, you know, life's good. Summer's good. I'm already itching to get back into the rink, but I'm loving doing some CFL coverage as well.
Yes, exactly. You were on the broadcast last night, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right about that?
You are right. It was a bit of a demolishing by Hamilton. BC is really banged up right now, but all in all, still a great game. And honestly, guys, this is my first year covering the CFL. I do have to say the games have been so exciting. I've been really happy to be a part of it this year. 3 weeks in, and it's only going to go up from here.
Yeah, absolutely. But Bo Levi Mitchell looking like he's found the fountain of youth. He's just ripping through secondaries left, right, and center so far.
It's crazy. Honestly, it's like I was talking to him yesterday and I was like, you're really not done here. Like, what are your future goals? Because he just hit yesterday, tied for 6th on the all-time CFL list for wins, tied with Ricky Ray. And I was telling that to him and he was even like, oh my gosh, I'm getting old. I was like, you don't look like it at all. So no, it's been really cool.
Well, age is only a number. Jonathan Toews, though, decided that 38 is as high as he wants to go with the number, his age with regard to his playing career. We spent the first 30 minutes or so talking about him, talking about his press conference yesterday. Obviously, you were busy with your CFL duties, but covering Jonathan Toews last year. What stood out to you the most about your time talking with him, your experiences with him, just sort of observing him on the regular basis like we all have in our roles?
Well, Drew, I think I have an interesting perspective because I only started working in the NHL in the last couple of years. And so whenever I would think of Jonathan Toews or watch him earlier in my life, I was just a hockey fan, right? I never covered him or the league earlier on in his career. So I got to enjoy and got to see the star for what he was as a fan. And I was a huge Jonathan Toews fan growing up, especially when he was on Team Canada. And so covering him this year, especially seeing him come back, I was so excited to just kind of in the least creepy way, just like watch him day in, day out, and really just see what he does to separate himself. And Dave, you were in the locker room every day as well. Like, you just saw it, the professionalism and also the warmth. I am not sure if I've told you guys this story before, so sorry if I'm repeating myself, but one of the coolest things was early on in the season before Logan Stanley got traded. I was chatting with him and I wanted to ask him, I said, honestly, random question for you, but is that whole Jonathan Toews aura thing actually real? And Stanley was like, yeah, it's real. And I was like, really? And he goes, yeah, the first time they met, when he came into the locker room, Toews went up to Logan Stanley, reached out his hand. Hey, Logan, I'm Jonathan. It's great to meet you. And Logan just goes, I know who you are, bud. But covering him this year, obviously he was the first one to say, you know, he was not playing up to his standards, which obviously led to him deciding to retire. I just was so impressed by the way that he just went about things day to day. The actual attention to detail that everyone talks about, you see it firsthand. Another thing that stood out was before every game, we'd get there at a certain point. I'd head to the media center. This guy, hours before, is doing incredible stick handling work in the hallways every single day before the game. And usually he's the only one that I would see, not saying other players aren't doing stuff before, but he was the only one I would see when I would walk into the media room, just dialed stick handling, doing whatever he could to get those hands ready for the game. So it was truly a pleasure covering him and just seeing what it takes to really be a star.
You know, Danielle, jumping off of that, what sort of lasting impact? I mean, we heard from Scott Arneal, he talked about the impact, but what sort of impact do you think Toews being in that room is going to have on not necessarily the older guys in the room, but the Brad Lamberts and the Braden Yaggers and that sort of thing?
Oh my goodness, so much impact. And we've all asked those younger guys, you know, what has it meant? And they are just gushing and glowing about the fact that Jonathan Toews was their teammate and someone that they were just talking to on a regular basis like a peer. And I think it's so funny. Every generation of people will be like, the younger generation doesn't work as hard. And that's always a classic line in any job, in any sense of life. But I truly believe that seeing what we saw, and to a crazier level, because they're around him obviously all the time, seeing the work ethic and seeing how dedicated he was is going to be a huge impact. So that's number one. And that's something that I think anyone who's ever played with Jonathan Toews can bring with them. But the other thing that really shone through this year was Toews talking about the mental side and truly the emotional side of the game, where he has finally learned later in his life to really not put too much on himself, like enjoy the game a little bit more and really just have fun and, you know, don't think too hard on the mistakes. And that's something he said that he really didn't learn till later in his career. And he wishes that he learned earlier. So I think that even though he's, you know, captain serious, I do think that he probably passed on a lot of mental side of the game to those younger guys just to really enjoy it, but also take things seriously in terms of your effort.
Danielle Bain from TSN is our guest here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Danielle, draft is 6 days away, which we know, deadlines are what often, sort of spurs organizations, into action. And so the big offseason question, of course, all year has been what to do with that first round pick if you're the Winnipeg Jets. Do you trade it and try and bring in somebody else who is going to immediately help? You hold on to it. You maybe start a bit of a retooling or rebuilding. As we sit here now, how do you foresee sort of the next week playing out from the Winnipeg Jets perspective?
I knew you were going to ask this, and this whole last couple of days, I'm like, what am I actually going to say? Because it's so hard. You see both sides of the coin, and you're like, okay, obviously if they're able to trade up and get a player that can come in right away, like an Ivar Stenberg, something like that, like if you can get someone that can come in and make an impact, that's exactly what Connor Hellebuyck was requesting, right? But then you're like, okay, what am I giving away to get that? And so I don't think they're going to trade the pick. If I had to really guess, again, I'm just going off what we've heard, what we've seen.
Yeah.
I don't have any inside information into that. But I don't think they're going to trade the pick, and I don't think they should. I think they really need to lean on really trying to sign someone. And I know that that's kind of diabolical for me to say because so many people say that it's so hard to acquire guys. But I just don't think trading away certain assets to move up in the draft is ideal right now, especially because they need to focus on where they're at with the players they have.
Danielle, do you think that there is going to be an organizational rethink in terms of player usage when you see a guy like Nikolai Ehlers go to Carolina and have the level of success he did, and know that you had that player, you could have retained that player who was very happy in Winnipeg if you changed his usage?
I know that's the big talk of the town right now, Dave, especially, first of all, shout out to Nikolai Ehlers. I know I didn't cover him because I just came to Winnipeg last season, but every single person, part of the media, part of the Jets organization, absolutely loved him. And you can see in his interviews, the way he goes about things, such a great guy, really well deserved for him to win that cup. And I know everyone in Winnipeg's so happy for him. But back to your question, Dave, I do think so. I think there might be a little bit of a rethink, but I think we also need to remember this happens in so many different organizations, not trying to just, cushion Winnipeg, because they should rethink the way that they went about using Nikolai Ehlers, but this happens everywhere. You know what I mean? Players always move on to other organizations and glow up. We'll call it that. They'll have a little bit of a glow up. And sometimes it is because of just, the way they play there, or it is because of usage. I do think people are definitely upset about Ehlers, and, we've talked about other guys, especially in the Moose, but I do think it'll lead to a bit of a rethink, especially with, the way that, example, Scott Arneal loved keeping that first line together, loved keeping Scheifele and Connor together. Maybe these are questions where they open up everything and they're like, hey, we need to rethink the way we're using everyone here.
Danielle, you're right about that. And I mean, it just seems like this organization, they seem more stubborn than a lot of the other organizations. And I think that's the problem that a lot of people have, is that they, to your point about, every offseason seems like it's an opportunity, or they say the right things about evaluating, reevaluating, reconsidering, all these sort of fancy words that they use whenever their season comes to an end, be it after the regular season or be it after a short playoff run. And then, September rolls around and you don't see any sort of evidence of a tangible rethink. That's the part, which leads me to my question about, there was some talk earlier in the offseason about Shane Doan potentially coming into the organization. And, there was a little bit of a buzz about that because it's a hockey mind. It's a guy who's been around the game. It's a guy who's had some experience in other front offices. And since then, that news has fizzled. It just seems to me that the organization right now, if I had to bet on anything, come September, it seems like they're going to be almost same status quo as they were when the season ended so disappointingly only a couple months ago.
Well, you guys would know best because you've obviously covered this team for so many years, but, and I know we'll get into this, the words that Connor Hellebuyck said at the end of his press conference on locker cleanout day, I just can't see a world in which an organization continues to be stubborn when your franchise player is really unhappy with the way that the season went. I, from an outside perspective, am there's no way that they're going to continue to be stubborn, or not even at least look in the mirror and say, okay, what can we do differently here? What eyes can we bring in? What voice is going to be needed in other areas of the organization? That's what I would think. But then you guys obviously have covered this team for so many years. And I want to know, from you guys, has there been another moment where you feel that they need to do that and that they can't go back and be stubborn because they could lose a franchise player like this? Have there been other seasons like this?
Well, Patrick Laine. I mean, you think
Laine is the only one.
Laine jumps out at you in terms of perhaps the way he was treated. I would say maybe that would he's the player who jumps out to me, to be honest with you, in terms of a significant piece. I mean, obviously there's guys like Jack Roslovic, who's was a first rounder here in Winnipeg, but was a center in the American Hockey League, played him on the wing, And then, maybe his usage wasn't where it was supposed to be. But in terms of a significant one, Danielle, I'd say it was probably Line A.
Yeah, that's the one. And I don't, to your point, though, you have Hellebuyck saying what he said. And I don't doubt for a second that his comments were also probably to not an insignificant degree echoed by Scheifele and Connor and Morrissey and probably Lowry as well. So you have your 5-6 core players of your team, screaming out for change. What message does it send if they don't see any change coming from the front office? I mean, then that really leads you wondering, how significant. I mean, the word that would jump to my mind at that point would be a dysfunction.
Yeah.
That would be the word and you never want to be associated with that word if you're in any organization, sports, business, anything. If the word that jumps to mind is dysfunction, you got a real serious problem.
Totally agree. And like one of the words Hellebuyck used to describe that season was just chaos. And that's what it kind of felt like a lot of ups and downs, mostly downs. In the words of Adam Lowry, I had a good chat with him towards the middle of the season. And I was like, so Adam, some ups and downs. And he goes, no, mostly downs. And I was like, oh, okay. So we can be like 100% here.
Yeah.
But no, you're right, Drew. I don't think that this season they can go in and be stubborn, because there's no way that's going to lead to a cohesive unit out there.
It just, and to your point, which I agree with, it's June 20th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Free agency, which is never usually a big day for the Winnipeg Jets, is 11 days away. The draft is 6 days away. Most of the NHL sort of goes to sleep mid-July and heads out to the cottage. Time's ticking. I mean, we see other organizations, everybody's pointed to the sort of the 3 Canadian teams, the Jets, the Oilers, and the Leafs, as organizations that, as teams that had bad years where more was expected.
Yeah.
Well, Toronto cleaned house. Whether or not you agree with their hirings is, time will tell, but they've cleaned house and they've gone out and they've already acquired a player that they expect to help them next year. Edmonton, I mean, they've decided to throw their lot in with Mike Babcock. Whatever. They've done something. Here in Winnipeg, it's just been radio silence. I mean, it's been 4 months or however many shows we've had to do where they really haven't done a thing. It's sort of remarkable that we're sitting here, having these same conversations this far into the offseason.
Maybe it does come back to the discussion then of trading the pick. So you're right. When you put it that way, something does need to be done. Mm-hmm. And we all know that. The team knows that. I hope the organization knows that. They do. But what that is, obviously Winnipeg's so limited with what they can do in terms of attracting players and things like that. Hellebuyck said it himself. He wishes that other people saw how incredible it can be to play in this city. And he's had an incredible time making those connections with fans and living here. So it is interesting. I'm very intrigued to see how it'll go, because I have no sense what way it'll go this offseason.
Well, let's talk about Hellebuyck. Sorry, Dave. Let's talk about
Dear
Hellebuyck.
Lord,
because
Drew, this is like a run of questions here.
Darren Dreger's reports this week, which again, there wasn't a lot of meat there necessarily, but it sounded like there's beginning to be more smoke, and where there's smoke, there's fire. What do you think happens on that? If we're here next Friday, or we're here 2 weeks from now, and the Jets haven't really done anything aside from maybe making a first-round pick, how do you sell that to a guy like Connor Hellebuyck, who's already put you on notice?
I do think that it might be after the draft and after free agency where he really kind of takes a moment to kind of reevaluate what he said in April. But guys, I think the one thing I wanted to point out is everyone's going off what he said in April, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because that was a pretty honest, polarizing interview in terms of where he was at with the organization. And Dave, you'll know too, that's the most honest that I've seen him this whole year.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the most honest you've seen him ever.
No, I mean, that was, he was, you're absolutely right. He was laying it all out there.
Exactly. But one quote, and I literally wrote this down because I wanted to make sure I got the words right. He did say, and everyone's picking up on, the buzz lines of like change needs to happen. Can't put that product out on the ice again. He did say as well, with time, everything heals. So obviously, like he was so heightened at that point, so disappointed with the way things went. But he literally said his focus is to go into the offseason, find any possible way he can make his game better, and really just kind of simmer. And so I don't think, in my opinion, I wouldn't think anything has changed for him since April to now. I know it's obviously heating up in terms of talks because of what you said, Drew, the draft coming up and free agency coming up. But, Dregs also mentioned like he doesn't have any information that Hellebuyck has formally requested a trade, so he doesn't believe that he has. From what I gathered in that press conference in April, I don't believe that Connor Hellebuyck requested a trade either. And I really, really, truly believe that he wants to win in Winnipeg. And like he said, like everyone's talking about, oh, maybe he gets traded to Florida, or maybe he goes here, maybe he goes here. Like he said, he only cares about winning. He doesn't do it for the money or the fame. He literally only cares about winning. I truly believe that he'll give it a go this season if things happen this offseason. So like you said, Drew, draft, free agency, as long as something changes or something happens where he believes that it's going to be a better product on the ice, I believe that he'll give it one more chance this season and really, really evaluate throughout the season if he wants to stay beyond that. So I really don't think he's requesting a trade unless nothing changes this offseason.
So the question, though, Danielle, is, I mean, we've gone through all of this kind of thought exercise in terms of the Winnipeg Jets and the moves they can make or the moves that they're limited to, and we haven't seen anything happen. So, I mean, if you're putting on your prognostication hat and saying, wow, this is what I think could happen, I'm with you. I'm of the same mindset in that I agree that, look, when we speak to these guys right after a season ends, whether it's a playoff series or the disappointment of not making the playoffs, they're still fired up. They're still, like, when we've talked to them after they lost to Dallas, they believed they could have won that series. They believed that they could have done better. So, I mean, like, when you're getting those guys right after the season ends, or like I said, the playoffs ends, they're fired up. You're right. Cooler heads prevail. There's a reason why there's an expression, and you have a time to reflect and think. And I would echo your sentiments. And I think it's important to remember, like, Connor Hellebuyck wants to win in Winnipeg.
Yeah,
he really does. He wants to win. I'd put winning top of his list, but winning in Winnipeg is just going to be like a smidge below that, because it is important for him, for an organization that took, I mean, you talk about loyalty and that word gets thrown around a lot, but I mean, he feels a lot of connectivity to this organization that took a chance on him as a fifth rounder playing in for the Odessa Jackalopes back in before he got drafted. So I don't think there's any question that he wants to win with them, but I just look at it and I think to myself, like, if we're talking, look, and we've done the breakdown, we've talked about this team, ad nauseum, and you look at the players who had poor seasons last year, and there's, half a dozen guys who would really, if you looked at them, said, yeah, we all played poorly last year, or our health limitations limited our abilities to get to where we needed to be. So obviously the organization is expecting a little bit of a bounce back from the Adam Lowrys, the Cole Perfettis, the Dylan Sandbergs, the Neil Pionks, the Connor Hellebucks. I mean, like, that's the other thing that we have to remember. Connor Hellebuyck played well at the Olympics. It wasn't as if Connor Hellebuyck had a good season. It was one of his worst seasons statistically. But one thing I always point out is the Jets defensively were so poor that even people who look at Eric Comrie's numbers and they say they're terrible, well, his goal saved above expected is actually in the positive, because the level of difficulty in the saves that he had to make were at an all-time high, as was for Connor Hellebuyck. But from your perspective, it's a long-winded way of asking.
I was going to say, is there a question here?
Oh, Drew, after you went 10 questions in a row, I needed to get a little airtime.
I didn't realize you were channeling Ezzy with that soliloquy there.
Usually I try and keep my questions to 10 or 15 seconds, but
I'm loving this. You're talking and I'm like, yeah.
I decided to grab the conch there and just go with it. But anyways, the question I really have, though, is that, can you sell Connor Hellebuyck on a vision of minimal change if in fact that's what's happening, and just saying, like, listen, we're going to bounce back, our structural differences are going to be different, and that sort of thing. And you know, to me, it's hard. It's a hard sell. And I think then if you don't have success, then I guarantee you he is not going to be a member of the Winnipeg Jets next season.
It is really tough sell. And like we were talking about, you know, if nothing changes, you're right. This team should, in theory, be better than they were last season based on health, based on some of those guys that didn't produce as much as they should have, maybe taking a step forward. So you're right. But that's not enough. You know, they've had a President's Trophy winning team and didn't get past the second round. So it's like Connor Hellebuyck has all of these examples and quite literally receipts as to why a team that's very similar coming back, even if they do take a step forward again, is that a Stanley Cup winning team?
Right.
Right? Like, so I don't think that's enough in terms of selling Connor Hellebuyck. They sold him when they, you know, negotiated his extension, and they gave him, you know, hope that this was going to be a team that can contend for a Stanley Cup. So I don't think that's enough. I'd love to see this organization really make some changes. And like he said, you can't put the same product back on the ice. And one thing that really stood out in your, what do they call them? An epilogue?
Soliloquy?
Oh, soliloquy.
Yeah.
What really stood out there is you talked about how much worse they were defensively, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I asked Kevin Cheveldayoff at the end of season availabilities about that, and just kind of asked, like, is that something you believe that you can change with personnel, or truly, like, will you have to change something mindset wise? He said, I believe defense is a mindset. So it's like, okay, they believe as an organization that they can be better defensively, not necessarily changing personnel and bringing personnel in. So I found that very interesting as well. And I'm like, how is he going to sell Connor Hellebuyck on that when this group has been so good defensively in the past, and then all of a sudden they were way worse this season? And Cheveldayoff, with that comment, basically was saying, like, you know, we believe we can change that in-house. So I'm very intrigued.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I was going to ask about the defense, Danielle, because the Jets defense isn't good enough to expect better results as it currently stands. You have, you know, Josh Morrissey, and we know Josh is still, you know, going to be your number one left side defenseman. You got no problems there. Dylan Samberg is your number two left side defenseman. Hopefully a bounce back season for him. After that, you got nothing but question marks. You got, you know, Dylan DeMello did not have a good year, is not getting any younger, you know, so he is certainly on the downside of his career. No disrespect. Elias Salomonsson is injured to start the year. Who knows how healthy he'll ever be throughout the course of next year. We've seen it just last year, what happens when a guy gets injured and starts the year injured and never really captures his form. Neil Pionk had a terrible year last year. You know, does he immediately get better than he was last year? I think that's too soon to tell. Your third pairing left side defenseman is Hayden Fleury, a guy who is better suited probably as a 7-8 kind of guy. I just don't see, if you're Connor Hellebuyck or anybody on this Jets team, how is this defense good enough as currently constructed? And I just think their hope is not a plan.
Yeah. And I really do think they would benefit bringing someone in on the back end that has speed. We talk a lot about, you know, a physical presence, which I also think is important, but like speed is key. And Connor Hellebuyck, like, getting into the weeds here a little bit, but he was saying that, you know, there are a lot of reasons as to why he had so many tipped and screened goals. And a lot of times it's positioning and getting to a position quick enough. So he was really pointing out that speed is something that could be a huge factor to really help him get more vision and, you know, not allow as many tipped and screened goals. So it's like, you're right. Is this defense good enough to come back and do exactly what they need to do? No. But who are they able to bring in? Like, obviously, if you look at the draft, if they do pick 8th, like, are they able to bring in someone who can play right away? Probably not, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like they're at this kind of crossroads. And like Connor Hellebuyck said, I wish people understood how amazing it was to play in Winnipeg and how the organization runs and just what you can actually do in this city and connect, because it's such a great place to play. But it is a tough sell, so it'll be interesting.
And I guess, Daniel, last one for you, but just in terms of expectations, I mean, look, a lot of guys aren't waiver exempt next year, right? You got the Isak Rosans, the Brad Lamberts, Nikita Chibrikovs, Danny Zhilkins. Is there one player in particular that you're curious that may be ready to take that next step? Because I mean, obviously this Jets organization, to me, Rosen is the one who kind of jumps out because he was so prolific at the American Hockey League level of doing something that you want all your prospects to do, which is score goals. So is there a player for you that like maybe we're not really talking about a lot, but could be someone that this organization is looking at and saying, look, you know, he's ready to take that next step and help us in a capacity that we didn't have last year?
I know it's a small sample size, so I have two little topics here. Small sample size on Brad Lambert in terms of, you know, getting that extended stay with the team towards the end of the season. In my opinion, like especially with what they have to work with, I do think he did enough to show that he can take a next step. So I do believe that he is kind of on his way. Whereas you look at someone like Rosen, like you mentioned, I don't think he had enough of a chance to really like prove what he can do. So I would really look at him to take that next step. And circling back to what we said about Jonathan Toews, showing players like him what it takes to be an important piece of a roster is really, really important because, you know, I've talked to you about this, Dave. I covered the American Hockey League for a number of years before getting this job in Winnipeg. And I covered the Marlies, who just won the Calder Cup.
I was going to mention that to you.
Just got to shout them out, you know, hardworking organization. But Rosen was in the same division, so I would see him quite often. And when I talked to his previous coaches, they said that he had so many amazing things going for him. He just needed to find that consistent effort on a day-to-day basis. And so you see that a lot with younger players here and there, right? They're not fully understanding of making that jump from the AHL to the NHL. Being around the hard work ethic of the Winnipeg Jets, I genuinely believe would show him what it takes. And I really think that he deserves that chance to show what he's made of. So I think him for sure, if he gets that chance, would definitely take a step forward.
Danielle Bain with TSN. You'll be on the sidelines for Thursday night's game in Winnipeg?
You better believe it, guys.
Awesome. We'll see you Thursday night down at the football stadium. And then Friday, of course, the draft party at the Canada Life Center, where we will be broadcasting live. So, Danielle, if you're around on Friday, come check us out there as well.
Guys, I just got to say, I love what you do and what you do for the Winnipeg sports scene. I'm a huge fan of you guys. So keep going. And it's always a pleasure getting to chat with you guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Danielle. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you next week. Be well.
Bye, guys.
Bye. There she goes, Danielle Bain, joining us this morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We'll come back with hour number 2 of the program. We'll talk a lot more. We've done Toews. We talked to Danielle. A lot more about Connor Hellebuyck and the Winnipeg Jets offseason with 6 days to go before round 1 of the NHL Draft. Smash the like button while we're in break. Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, live on a Saturday morning.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center.
Boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh, boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door. And you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, A Legal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca.
For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome to hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk with you. As I said, as we were going to break, a quick reminder, if you're going to be in attendance on Friday at the Jets draft party, or if you're looking to watch Jets draft coverage, we're going to be live at Canada Life Center. We're also going to be live, of course, here on our channel. So be sure to join us on Friday night for day 1, round 1 coverage of the NHL draft. We're going to have a cast of characters joining us, I'm sure, throughout the course of that first round broadcast. Going to be a lot of fun Friday night. So if you're at the arena, come say hi to us there. If you're not at the arena, tune in live. And we're going to have complete coverage of day 1, round 1, focused solely on the Winnipeg Jets and everything that may come out of that first round of the NHL draft. Dave M., do you think the Jets make that pick? Let's talk about it over the next course of the next 50 or so minutes. Focus solely on the Jets, the draft, Hellebuyck, trade rumors, everything. What do you think is the most likely thing to occur between now and Friday night?
I think they're going to make the pick. I think that this is an opportunity to get a player that this organization doesn't have right now, which is either a top center prospect or a top defensive prospect. I mean, right now, again, they've got some guys in the system who have top 4 capabilities, but top 2, a Daxon Rudolph, a Carson Carroll, sorry. I mean, I think there are some very good defensive prospects. Obviously, the centers. We've been having, we had Craig Button on last month. We had Shane Malloy on last week. Real good insight. If you haven't seen those interviews, I suggest you go and watch them. They're both on, of course, our YouTube channel. Excuse me, but
bless you.
Thank you. But I think it was more of like a sneeze. At least it wasn't a sneeze fart. It was not a what do they call that? A snart. It was not a sneeze fart. Thankfully, it was more of a sneeze cough. But
I'll have to ask my 8-year-old son. He'd better know what that is called. I didn't realize that you were going to drop that on us right now.
Well, you got to do what you got to do. I mean, this is you got to be ageless on the show, Drew. Yeah. But no, I mean, I think they're going to make it. I mean, obviously they have a draft party, right? And we joked with Craig about, or as he might have made that comment to Craig, saying, well, Craig, the show next, the live show, the draft show they're doing might be a little boring if they're doing that and there's no pick to be made by the Winnipeg Jets. So I think that they'll be making it. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. If something came along that blew them out of the water, they're going to probably take it and they'll figure something else out in terms of Friday night. Maybe they'll make Illegal Curve the
main entertainment.
The main entertainment. But
hang on, I'm getting word that people are already demanding their money back.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's I think they're going to make the pick because, again, like I said, a guy like Daxon Rudolph, who I've been kind of focused on, obviously Vio Bjork, who's a center, that Alexander Command. I wasn't. I mean, he would be a bit of a high. They might move back to get him, but he seems like a bulldog, as Shane Malloy talked about. Yes, last week. Sorry. So I mean, there's a lot of really good players, but it's a crapshoot. It is a crapshoot. I mean, these are projections, and while most of these guys will go on to have good NHL careers, you're looking for someone that you hope will have a great NHL career, who is going to take your organization to that next level. But as Shane said to us last week, you have to be cognizant of the fact that this is going to be a player who's probably going to be doing that in 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Not next year, not the year after next, maybe in 3 years, but most likely in 4 or 5 years. So from a Jets perspective, it's great. Again, most of these guys are committed to go play in college next year, Drew.
Yeah.
They're not coming to Winnipeg next year. I mean, again, even an Albert Smith, who's quote the most NHL ready defenseman, isn't expected to make the NHL next year. It's going to be, so you've got maybe 2 players, and there's always that one who kind of, again, it's not an exact science. If it was, it would be a lot easier to, pick a Connor Hellebuyck not in the 5th round. That's why, again, there's a human element to this. It's not done by robots, it's not done by AI yet. So it's an imperfect process, and there are players who can rise to the occasion and kind of defy the expectations and play in the NHL right out of the draft, but it is very rare. So from a Jets organization, again, Drew, we've talked about it. I've been talking about this in terms of straddling the fence or straddling the line. It's tough because, again, you're going to get a piece that is going to have a huge impact on your organization for years to come. But as Blake Wheeler said many years ago when he was asked about draft picks, I'm focused on what do I care? I'm focused on winning with the Winnipeg Jets right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's the organization, somewhat to their own doing is in a really difficult spot. And I mean, that sort of leads to the Dreger conversation of earlier this week, where he was on Barn Burner and he was on That's Hockey or whatever else.
I'm pretty sure everybody was on everything. There's
nothing else to talk about. There's no games anymore. You got to talk about something else.
There was a lot of smoke this week.
Yeah,
when it came to and as everyone knows, we on illegalcurve.com have everything kind of documented. And I was like, I mean, everybody's saying the exact same thing, which is, nobody, I mean, Drew, I won't steal your thunder, but I just thought it was very curious that everyone was kind of repeating the same points, but maybe you'll lead into it and then I can get it to my here's another word for Danielle, diatribe.
Yeah, there you they're talking about, Dreger was at the forefront of talking about, Connor Hellebuyck and his future in Winnipeg. And again, Darren Dreger is very tied into the Jets organization. We know this. He's got ties.
That's why when people question, it's like, folks, it's coming from Kevin Cheveldayoff. Like, you can not like it. You can not like what he's saying, but he's not saying it out of school.
That's right. He's exactly right. He's getting this from a reliable source. He's not spitballing. He's not throwing things at the wall. The organization talks to Darren Dreger. We know that he's got long ties to Manitoba. He's got long ties to the Prairie provinces. So Darren Dreger is a reliable source in this matter. What I take from the comments is that this is Kevin Cheveldayoff sending a message through Dreger to the entire NHL saying, step up. If you want Connor Hellebuyck, if you want me to consider a trade of Connor Hellebuyck, I'm not desperate to do it. I'm not necessarily wanting to do it, but step up. That is, to me, what this is all about this week, is that it is Cheveldayoff, using subterfuge to say to his fellow general managers, what you have offered so far is not sufficient. It's not moving the needle enough for me.
Yeah.
Step up. Because if I'm trading you $1, and Connor Hellebuyck is that $1, so far you've been offering me, 2 quarters and 3 dimes. That's not going to get it done. You're going to need to offer me the equivalent and or more in order to get this world-class defenseman. Pardon me, goaltender, world-class goaltender. The Jets need a world-class defenseman. That, to me, is the bulk of this week's smoke, is that it's just that the Kevin Cheveldayoff has not received anything that moves the needle for him yet. And he would consider it. But you would consider every player. There's nobody that you shouldn't consider, is also what I think is important here. Especially with, Kevin Cheveldayoff saying, I have Connor Hellebuyck, regarded as one of despite maybe the bad year last year, regarded as one of the top goaltenders in the NHL, making an incredibly reasonable amount of money for the next 5, 6, 7 years. So far, you fellow general managers aren't valuing this asset high enough. Now, maybe Kevin Cheveldayoff is misplaying his hand. Maybe teams look at the Carolina Hurricanes and they look at what they did with two goaltenders that are not by any stretch household names in Freddie Anderson and Brandon Bussey, and saying, maybe we don't need a number one goaltender anymore. But then again, you look at the Vegas Golden Knights, who had mediocre at best goaltending in the Stanley Cup final. Probably worse than mediocre in that Carter Hart. I think maybe it was only the final game of the series where he had a goal saved above expected that was in the positives. Maybe
where he didn't give up 4 goals in a game.
Exactly right. Again, that to me is what this week has been about. It's been about, I'll consider it, but you're not there yet and you're nowhere near there. Now, from the Winnipeg Jets perspective, and I wanted to get you in here quickly on this one, from the Winnipeg Jets perspective, if you make the Hellebuyck move, I have trouble believing that it brings you back enough to make you that much better next year. And next year still needs to be the goal for this team. It needs to be that you still have to be better, the product on the ice next season. So I don't think that a Hellebuyck move can be your only move. I think there's got to be subsequent dominoes. Now, I don't know what those subsequent dominoes necessarily are, but I think that this has to be a well sketched out blueprint if the Jets go down this road.
Yeah, I mean, look, so again, we'll get to the idea that if you actually cut away, through some of the BS that we've been hearing all week, I mean, and be careful the headlines, folks. I mean, first of all, people don't listen. People don't read. So they'll read one thing and then again, I mean, and I'm just going to provide a little
than the clickbait is what you're saying.
Well, I'll just provide a little clarity in what I mean. Kevin Cheveldayoff's extension, that's in the early days, as per Dreger on that Barn Burner podcast. And we can talk about this later if you want, Drew. It doesn't matter. We can talk about it now. But the point is, like, we have people asking, is he negotiating an extension? And it's a reasonable question. You know why? Because people who don't read, whose reading comprehension is subpar at best, will read the fact that what Dreger said was that he's, it was coming in terms of the idea of would he be let go? And he said, well, no, because he's in the early days of an extension, which means he's already signed the extension. The extension was signed previously. This is the early days of said extension. But then if you read headlines right now, Kevin Cheveldayoff negotiating an extension. Well, no, that's not what's happening. He's already signed the extension previously. Now, it is news, though. It is newsworthy.
Think about it in the sense of Neil Pionk. In that Neil Pionk signed a contract extension that it's only now getting started in that he's in the early days of a contract extension. Not in the early days of negotiating a contract extension.
Or signing it.
But rather in early days of actually being in the midst of the new contract that was signed.
That's right. And I just think that it's important. Again, I think it was newsworthy when Dreger said it. And the reason I say that is because people can act like it was out there. But if you go to the news and you look at any headline from a reputable paper or online source, there's been nothing in terms of this extension as far as I can tell. The last thing I heard about an extension was when Kenny Wiebe in May of 2022 broke the news that he had signed a 3-year extension. Now, again, we didn't know when that extension kicked in. He might have had one more year and maybe needed to sign something new this year, which would be my speculation, but we didn't know, right? So it's definitely notable that he's in the early days of an extension. Again, not something that was publicly stated as far as I could tell. It's not something that the teams release in terms of the executive. But that's just, again, the reason I'm bringing it up, one, is because it was a question that folks had about that and that sort of idea.
Folks, I mean, sorry, Dave, but it's evident, folks, that Kevin Cheveldayoff is here for the long haul. That despite there being a disappointing year last year,
I would say this. I would say this. Okay.
The organization still strongly believes in him, Dave.
I'm not saying that, Drew. I'm not suggesting otherwise. I'd say that this, we've said this before, but I would suggest that this year is a very pivotal one, depending on the organizational direction they take.
I don't think that it's.
I think it matters. I mean,
I think it matters a hell of a lot more.
Now
the first 20 games of the season matter a hell of a lot more for Scott Arneal,
no,
who's in the last year of his contract, and that is, there's no question about that. That Scott Arneal, the 26-27 season, which is upcoming season is the final year of his current contract, and there's been no talk about a contract extension for him as far as we know.
No. That's it's definitely fair, Drew. But again, like I said, I just think it's one of those. We don't know to the contrary, but if you look, he is now the longest serving general manager, with Doug Armstrong retiring in St. Louis and passing off the keys to Alexander Steen, the Winnipegger, taking over in St. Louis. So Kevin Cheveldayoff now will be the longest tenured GM in the NHL. And but we talk about it being a results-based business, and this organization's results are, 8 playoff appearances, 1 Western Conference final. Is it 4 rounds of playoffs that they've won?
1, 2,
4?
3. Yeah, 4 if you consider if you're talking
Yeah.
if you including the bubble against not the
Edmonton?
bubble, but the COVID year against Edmonton. Yeah,
believe me, if you were a Winnipegger from the 80s, and you told that person that the Winnipeg Jets would sweep the Edmonton Oilers, however you reference it, they'll take it. So no, I just think that there's definitely going to be some, there's no question that Kevin Cheveldayoff signs good contracts. Generally speaking, there's some that he's signed of late that are not the best contracts, but the Scheifele and the Hellebuyck ones are fantastic in that regard. But again, I didn't want this to become a Cheveldayoff segment. I just thought it was important because I'm seeing a lot of misinformation out there in terms of people writing headlines. And again, I would caution you to be careful of your sources when you read some of these. And getting back now, Drew, to Hellebuyck and sort of the smoke and fire with respect to him. Again, I think you're right. I think that Cheveldayoff is listening to offers, but he's not being blown away, which is the reason why you say to Dreger, what was Dreger's? I should get it down. I should have had it up, but what was the exact quote in terms of something plus, right? So,
Winnipeg is willing to consider moving Connor Hellebuyck. It's going to take a second, it's going to take that second line center. It's going to take a young prospect. It's plus. We know what it's going to take. We know what the idea,
But his saying that through Dreger is basically to the point you just made, meaning that the offers that they are receiving are insufficient.
Right.
And so he's not going to, he doesn't have any reason to move Connor Hellebuyck in the sense that Connor Hellebuck's under contract for 5 more years. He is a Winnipeg Jet for 5 more years because that's the contract they signed. So the fact of the matter is that Kevin Cheveldayoff, while the words, and remember, the words were said 2 months ago in the heat of the season ending and the disappointment of a very frustrating season. Now, I don't think that Connor Hellebuck's position has changed. I still think he wants to win the Stanley Cup, obviously. Mm-hmm. So he knows that's a legacy. When we talk about legacy, we just spent, a half an hour of our show to start talking about Jonathan Toews and his legacy. And obviously with him, it's, 2 gold medals. It's the World Juniors success. It's the Stanley Cups. It's the Conn Smythe. But again, it's oftentimes referenced 3 Stanley Cups in 6 years for Jonathan Toews and the Chicago Blackhawks, turning that organization around, right? So that's part of the legacy talk. And I know that Connor Hellebuyck, with his 3 Vezinas and his 2 William Jennings and all that, and the Hart, all important, but he knows that to kind of cement that legacy, to go from a very good goaltender who wasn't able to get it done to one, and obviously a gold medal, I should mention, to one who also has a Stanley Cup or multiple Stanley Cups under his resume. That's what he wants. Again, and
by the way, that's what you should want. Every member of the fan base should be applauding Hellebuyck for demanding more from the organization. This is what you want. You want your players to have a give a damn factor. You want your players to be, looking inward at what they did that wasn't sufficient, but at the same time, you want them to be frothing at the mouth for the organization to be doing more to help them in supporting the possibility of victory. And that is certainly where the organization, as Connor Hellebuyck made perfectly clear, he wasn't absolving himself of the blame. Maybe he didn't emphasize it enough, but we all know how hard, we know how Connor Hellebuyck sort of approaches his comments in the media, but we also can never question his dedication. No. I don't think that would be a fair comment to level towards him, that he doesn't care. He gives a damn. And he's saying, I want the organization to give the same level of damn, to turn over every rock, to kick over every stone, to find ways to improve the team we have.
And
improve.
Wasn't Connor Hellebuyck just saying what everybody else was saying? Is that with that group last year, you're not winning the Stanley Cup.
Right.
So, I mean, again, to the point you're making, if he doesn't say those words, like, think about it. If Connor Hellebuyck doesn't say what he said in April, then the Jets organization gets kind of a cruise to say, well, you know what? We had Adam Lowry out because of the surgery, and he was never able to get up to what he had. High ankle sprain for Cole Perfetti, Dylan Sandberg injured, Neil Pionk injured, Connor Hellebuyck injured, Josh Morrissey injured. You know, unlike in previous years where we've been healthy, last year we were injured. Oh, and Nita Ryder was injured, and Nemestikov was injured. So last year we had all these injuries catch up to us, and that's the reason why we were never able to get to where we were. And then what they would say, as we know the Jets, is that they would, a little Pollyanna, they would say, well, look at us from the break to the end of the season where we started to play better hockey and we started to get back into the race. And of course they were too far back. So I'm just saying that, you know, if he doesn't say what he says, they have opportunities to kind of point to the latter half of the season and say, we expect with healthy bodies, we are going to be much closer to the President's Trophy team than we were the team that didn't finish in the playoffs. And now the status quo for next year of bounce back isn't sufficient coming from their number one goaltender.
I think part of his frustration, and then we've been talking about this frustration now for 3 months. So, I mean, we're not reinventing anything or rediscovering any. I
don't think he's frustrated right now. I think he's doing a lot of fishing right now.
It seems like he's doing a lot of fishing on his Instagram. I agree with you there. Probably, which is good. You know, he deserves the time off as much as anybody else does. But I don't doubt for a second he's also doing the work, you know, to make sure that he's in as good condition as possible to start the year. I mean, I think what the frustration to some extent came from is that the season was going off the rails and they didn't do anything to stop it. That the organization sort of just sat back and let it happen. Because that's what they did. I mean, we've talked about it. We talked about it on every Saturday show and every post-game show ad nauseum last year, is that it was evident to everybody that this isn't working. And the organization was...
Well, and Drew, they didn't put Gus Nyquist on waivers.
Right. They didn't do anything to try and change things up. They're like, well, we've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas. I mean, that could be the slogan of the Winnipeg Jets in 25-26 was, we've tried nothing as the season has gone off the rails and we're all out of ideas.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you didn't put anybody on waivers. You didn't bring up any of the youth and say, well, you know what, here's your chance. Here's your chance. You know, the youth were brought up because there were injuries, right? Elias Salamonson was only brought up because guys got injured. So, I mean, it's a problem.
Day late and $1 short last year for the Winnipeg Jets. We'll see what comes in the 26-27 season. We'll see what comes this week. Going to be a busy week. We know we've seen the moves already beginning in a lot of other markets. The draft is on Friday. We'll be there live at Cadno Life Center and, of course, live here as well on our channel. So be sure to tune in Friday night. I think first round starts at 6 p.m. Central Time. So we'll have live coverage here on Illegal Curve. We'll come back with more of the show. Coaching, Rhett Warrener, when he was on with Dreger, when Dreger was on the Barn Burner show, had some interesting things to say about coaching that I want to bring forward. Just as a bit of a drive-by on Scott Arneal, but I think it's worth discussing as well. Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk, Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by our friends at Play Now. Much more to come. Don't go anywhere.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue next to Canada Life Center.
Boys, I've made an important life decision and I need your support.
Oh boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door, and you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca.
For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Bottom of hour number 2, Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by our friends at Play Now. Smash that like button if you haven't already done so, folks. That's what we ask of you. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I know you already are, but make sure you are. Double check, triple check. And while you're triple checking, tell a friend that the best place to be every Saturday morning, coming up this coming Friday night, and of course after each and every Winnipeg Jets game, is the Illegal Curve YouTube channel. As I mentioned heading into break, Darren Dreger was on that Barn Burner show, and there was, oh, hang on, I think I just screwed it up. I think I didn't actually put the audio up, so let me maybe try that one more time, if you don't mind, Dave M.
I'm good with what you're doing, Drew. I mean, you're sharing, you're bringing the technology in.
Here we go. So this is an interesting comment just about coaching. It's a bit of a drive-by. It's not a lot of meat there, but it's coming from a former player. And players talk. If we know anything about this league, players talk. So again, with a grain of salt, but here's a little bit of an interesting comment vis-a-vis the Winnipeg Jets head coach.
Rhett Warner.
That's from Rhett Warner. Sorry, yes, I should mention that. Rhett Warner, formerly of the Calgary Flames.
To Winnipeg, did they fall off the turnip truck, or is there some? I've heard coaching is an issue. I'm just going to say it. Is there something to it?
Well, I don't know that because I'm not in the room. I guess what I would say is when I watch their star players, and I think of Scheifele and I think of Kyle Connor, I mean, those guys are so offensively gifted, right? That I can appreciate that at times you just want to let the horses run a little bit. But I don't think that Rick Bowness allowed those guys to do that. You know, I think that he was more demanding of defensive detail. Like, we need you guys to be as responsible as you possibly can be. Look, you'll have time in the offensive zone to, Babcock used to call it the fun zone, to do what you're going to do and all of that. But we need you to be able to defend. And, when I watch this team, and I isolate those two guys because they're the head of the snake. In a good way, not a bad way, right? You shut down Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, and most often than not, you're probably going to find a way to beat the Winnipeg Jets. And that happened more often than not, I think, last year. And that put added pressure on that blue line, and then at times put more pressure on Connor Hellebuyck in the goaltending. So maybe I'm answering your question that way, Rhett, without knowing whether or not the players feel like Scott Arneal is an issue.
Well,
I don't think management thinks it's a coaching issue.
Yeah, well, that's fine for management. Well, and I love Arneal in there because I had heard that, but Edmonton made a coaching change. Toronto made a coaching change.
Yeah.
They're one of the teams that should have been, when we look at Florida not doing well, Christ, they were beat to piss. Like, you're not going to fire Maurice.
Okay, that's enough out of there. But, I mean, again, take it with a grain of salt. We don't know what baggage may exist between Rhett Warrener and Scott Arneal.
Or his former Calgary teammate who may have shared those thoughts with him.
Very much so. Very much so.
A recent guest on A Legal Curve.
Mike Commodore is who Dave is referencing. So you're absolutely right that these comments should be taken with a grain of salt. But there's probably some validity to it. And I think what's more important is it shows, I think, to a great deal, Scott Arneal is on the hot seat.
No question.
Start the 26-27 season. That if this doesn't go well for the Winnipeg Jets pretty quickly, they can't wait to mid-season to do something. That if it's not going well early on, there's going to be there could be something afoot with regard to the coaching situation in Winnipeg.
Yeah, but I mean, again, doesn't it come back to, look, he made the decision to keep Nyquist in the lineup. He made the decision to use guys like Tanner Pearson and
Luke Shen.
Luke Shen, for sure. But I mean, so Arneal definitely owns this. And, they talk about the style of game, but part of that is also like on the GM who put the players together for this coach, right? So I think they're hand in hand. I think they're tied together. I think you can't look at one without the other. And I think that if you look at the decision-making that Arneal has made, he's made some bad decisions in terms of personnel, no question about it. Even the idea of not, I don't want to belabor the point about Ehlers, but when we saw it, when Kyle Connor got injured all those years ago, and Arneal was part of the coaching staff at that time, and they put Ehlers up with Scheifele, their numbers were off the charts. Now Scheifele loves playing with Connor. That's great. But again, Dreger said it himself, the horses want to run and they're not defensive. We saw it. How many times did we see it last year where a passive attempt to get back into the D zone that results in a goal against because they were on the ice too long.
There's no question about it. We saw the identity, which is something that's been a theme. The identity was lost last year. Now, the identity was lost for a number of reasons. The identity was lost because the organization, the general manager, the pro scouting brought in players who couldn't play to their identity.
Mm-hmm.
Older, slower. The identity was lost because the coach.
Well, Drew, if their identity was older, slower, they maximized it.
No. I'm saying they brought in those older, slower.
I know. I'm
guys
just kidding. I'm kidding.
The players cheated the game. Now, can you understand why they cheated the game? Yes, I can. But at the same time, once you start cheating, it took so long to get the cheat out of the room in the first place, to get it out of the system in the first place.
Right. For
the cheat to be a flaw rather than for the cheat to be a bug rather than a feature. Well, last year it went back to being the cheating was a feature of the organization, which is not a good thing.
Yeah.
But can they recapture what they were 2 years ago? Scott Arneal better hope to hell that they can, because if they can't, he's probably not going to be in a job for much longer.
Look,
now whether or not that's fair or not is a separate. Fair is a child's argument. It's not fair. Well, I'm sorry, 10-year-old. That's the way the world works.
Yeah,
I think Scott Arneal's in real tough to start this year.
Look, we'll have a much better handle on the state of this hockey club come September when we know the composition of the hockey club and who's where and that sort of thing. So we're really just speculation nation in terms of what it is. But, at the same time, we have to look at who they have currently on the roster and extrapolate from that, right, Drew, and go based on that. And then if things change,
is it fair to a coach to expect better when you're handing them a limited roster? Probably not, but like I said.
Well, but at the same time, like if you're, again, I think it was you who said in the first hour, the idea of if you're not learning and if you're not growing and if you're not evolving, then then you're staying this is not paraphrasing you exactly, but then you're staying stagnant and you're again, evolve or die.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's as important for Scott Arneal this summer to change his philosophy in certain regards. Look, you can't just, organization. That's why I always laugh when you say, oh, well, this organization won the Stanley Cup, so now everybody is going to try and emulate their style or their play. But hockey teams are like an aircraft carrier. They're cumbersome because you're not just planning it for 1 year. You're planning out 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line.
They don't turn easily.
It's ponderous. It doesn't just change like on the dime. It's right. It's not, you're not driving like a quick little boat, Drew. You're not on a little racing boat. So the reality is, or my fishing canoe, if you will. But the fact of the matter is, you have to, accept that this is the way the team looks. And so from Scott Arneal's perspective, if I'm him, I'm looking at this roster with all this youth, all these guys who are not going to be waiver exempt next year. And I'm saying, well, how can I get that speed, which, Lambert brings in spades. Zhilkin's a fast guy. Chibrikov isn't the fastest. Roseanne has got some speed. So how can you use that to get back to that style of game that you want to play and be effective? That's on him. He's the coach. He's going to have that responsibility. But I'm just saying that if you look at it, this is the team that's in front of you. If you want to be a coach in the NHL, you got to figure out how to use it to your best abilities. And I'm just saying that obviously, like Vegas, I think we would all agree that Vegas had the more talented players in the Stanley Cup final against Carolina. Carolina played a better team game and they were better structured than Vegas was. But if you look at the individual players on Vegas,
sure,
like you're going to take Vegas. I mean, if you look at them on paper, and I think most people took Vegas. I don't know. I think most people hated Vegas. They didn't want to pick them. But I'm just saying that if you look at the litany of players on that team, that's who you would have chosen. But Carolina, look at all the undrafted players.
Look what Carolina did. You talk about, wanting to emulate an organization. Carolina found value in players that other teams cast off or didn't think as highly of. Keandre Miller goes from the Rangers to Carolina. He's viewed as a liability in New York. He's an asset and a star in Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
We know about Ehlers. Well, actually, I'll play the Ehlers quote talking about Winnipeg at some point in the next 15 or so minutes.
Yeah, I figured that would be kind of how we end things, but whatever.
Yeah, we know about Ehlers. We know about just Brandon Bussey is a waiver claim, I think, from the
Florida,
right? He's off from Florida. We know that Carolina, they're not a big spending team. They don't spend to the cap. They're not a flashy, big market, no tax organization. They found areas that they can exploit. They exploited other teams' blind spots. Frankly, that's what the Winnipeg Jets need to be doing. That's what every team should be doing, is looking on the margins for where you can find value.
Sure, Jalen Chatfield was undrafted, and he played. Wasn't he the highest minute guy in defensively? I think for them. So it's a testament to an organization that said, okay, we're not a premier destination.
Right.
I know Drew's a big Raleigh guy, Raleigh.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, let's be honest, they're not a premier destination. They just aren't.
It's a very nice city, but nobody's running there as the greatest of all the free agent markets.
But again, it's just a fact that is like, look, they flipped Rantanen for Stankoven.
Yeah.
And look, Logan Stankoven in the AHL was phenomenal, dominant, no question, huge talent, huge asset. So it's asset management. So it can be done. I'm not saying Winnipeg and Raleigh, face the exact same challenges, but what they as an organization were able to do was to identify players that could play in their system,
yes,
and could do it effectively.
They went out and got them. They went
well,
out.
And again, remember, there's no salary cap in terms of spending on your
front office,
your front office, or your scouts, and in that regard, and to be honest with you, if I'm Winnipeg. And I'm thinking to myself, I can spend $5 million on player X, or I can get 10 guys, to be
Well,
I'm just saying, like,
if you had taken Gus Nyquist $3 million and you invested that into the organization in terms of scouts, into the organization, the payoff. I mean, we know that the payoff for Gus Nyquist $3 million was effectively nothing. The $3 million that they could have invested into the organization rather than into Gus Nyquist could have had lingering, lasting effects, positive impacts for years to come, as opposed to what we saw from Gus Nyquist. And I mean, I know it's we can probably stop beating up on Gus Nyquist because he didn't want the season to go the way it did, but that's where you need to find your areas of opportunity. That's where you need to your point, there's no salary cap for investing in your organization to find those areas that you can get 10% better.
Well, again, but that's the whole point. If you're Winnipeg and like, let's be honest, teams look, if you look at what Carolina did, and I don't have it in front of me, Drew, but if you look at what Carolina did on July 1st, technically I know they didn't sign Ehlers till a couple days later, but my point is, generally speaking, the team that wins free agency doesn't win the Stanley Cup.
Sure.
They don't. Now, Ehlers was a great addition to the Carolina Hurricanes, obviously had a significant impact on that playoff run. So, I mean, he was massive for them. There's no question about it. But I'm just saying that if you look at what teams can do, and if you're Winnipeg, let's disabuse you of the notion that you're going to be able to get an Alex Tuch, and you're not going to want to pay Alex Tuch what he wants, which is, like, according to reports, $10 to $11 million a season. So you're not going to get him, the premier in a bad draft, in a bad free agent class, winger, right? So from that perspective, Drew, how can you do it? Well, you need to ensure that your staff is sufficient to be able to turn those diamonds in the rough into diamonds. And again, like I said, I think that is an area that the Jets, again, I don't know the full extent of it, whether it's been expanded over the years or not, but I think it's just.
Are you talking about Murrock wrote about the size of the Jets front office earlier this offseason?
I'm not even talking about, look, I'm not saying you need more executives. Like, no offense. Like, you don't need another pencil pusher saying like another yes man to be like, oh, I think it's a great idea.
But I'm
saying you need boots on the ground, watching these people effectively.
Pro scouts and amateur scouts are the ones who are the bird dogs, as they used to call them in baseball, where the guys who are spending, thousands of kilometers on the road driving, here, there, and everywhere to just find those diamonds in a rough. That's why you have pro scouts and amateur scouts doing this sort of thing, is that you're finding Connor Hellebuyck in the 5th round out of Odessa.
Yeah.
I mean, you're finding these guys that come out of nowhere. That's where your investments need to be made to some extent, to find those guys, do they all pay off? No, of course not. But think about the value you've earned off of a player like a Connor Hellebuyck, who you get in the 5th round of a draft. Any guy or an undrafted player who comes in and makes an impact on your organization. It's unspeakable value. That's where, if you're not going to be a premier destination for free agents, and Winnipeg just isn't. We love the city. We live here. We raise our families here. It's not ever going to be a premier destination. So you need to invest in other ways to take advantage of getting those people in your organization when they don't have other options.
And I mean, again, Drew, just to quickly say, I mean, look at Dallas. I saw Sid put it in the chat. I mean, Dallas is a premier destination, and they do a hell of a good job drafting. I mean, you look at some of the
general manager.
Well,
Jim Nill would be at the top of my list when you in your list too, and we've had him on the show multiple times.
Yeah,
going back to when on terrestrial radio.
Yeah,
Jim Nill is one of, if not the best general manager in the league, in my estimation.
Oh yeah, but again, it's not. But look, we'd be naive to suggest, and Jim Nill would never say this, that it's solely Jim Nill.
Of course not.
He's got a great staff around him, and and I'm not suggesting that the Jets haven't been able to identify certain players or prospects. I mean, there's a lot of excitement for guys like Garrett Brown is coming up with the Jets as a 4th rounder from a few years back. You've got Kevin He and Kieran Walton. There's a lot of excitement for those guys who are 4th and 6th round picks who are currently outplaying the slot they were drafted in based on their career trajectories. Will it come to fruition? Time will tell, but
when you drafted Kevin He, you didn't necessarily expect him to start putting up the numbers that he did at the OHL level.
Yeah, and again, like I said, it's just, and now the biggest change is going to be going from junior to the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll or to the AHL, sorry. So we'll see how that works for those guys and how they're able to adapt. But again, I just think to me, it's more of a pro issue than an amateur issue. And I know that folks have issues with the Jets drafting, and the reality is Cole Perfetti and Elias Salamonson for the last few years are the only guys who are going to be. Again, Salamonson would be considered a regular, I would imagine, next year, Drew, with the Winnipeg Jets, and as is Cole Perfetti. But it's more, to me, it's more of it's especially based on last year. The fact that your staff identified guys like Pearson, guys like Nyquist to come in. It's not that you couldn't say, oh, well, maybe they've still got something left to give. It's a function of like, do they have something left to give that could allow them to adapt to the style that you play? And the answer is no. So that's the problem.
Were they targeted as guys that you think would fit into with the success pattern of the Winnipeg Jets the last few years before last year? And the answer is, if you thought that, then you didn't watch them play hockey, because they were never fast.
No,
they haven't been fast for a lot of years. They haven't been effective for a lot of years. Or did you sign them just to say that you signed some players?
I mean, yeah,
that's a big problem with the organization. If they signed guys just for the sake of signing them and hoping that maybe they could, if you squint hard enough, fit into what the team wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly they didn't. Clearly you need to reevaluate your processes. You mentioned Cole Perfetti. Going back to Dreger's interview, he mentioned that discussions have begun with Cole Perfetti. They're nowhere near, complete.
But that's, I mean, to be honest with you, I know people
not
are saying,
a surprise.
Like, yeah, I mean, like, guys, I mean, let's be honest. Like, people are like, oh, they're wide apart. It's like, well, no, but what's the deadline? The deadline isn't the draft. I mean,
well, the deadline is when he can file for, if he wants to take the team to,
sure.
If the side wants to take the team to arbitration.
For sure.
He's arbitration eligible this year.
No, I know. But I'm just saying that, like, the reality is that, and if he chooses not to, I mean, look, we've seen guys, Kyle Connor signed in October.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Morrissey signed in October. Like, guys sign late. It's not a function of that. So it's not, the Cole Perfetti stuff is
Perfetti stuff is going to come to a head in July, because somebody's going to take somebody to arbitration. I mean, there's no chance that that isn't going to result in an arbitration case, and that'll spur a deadline.
Right.
Whether or not it's a long-term contract, whether or not it's an actual arbitration award, we shall see on that front. But it's not going to last until through training camp.
No, but Drew, what I'm saying though is that delaying it till now, it's not like this is some sort of like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, it's acting as if somehow this is a significant thing. It's not a significant thing.
It's not priority, because they know that the deadline the deadline itself will cause this to become something that's dealt with.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, so you're right. There's no one expected Cole Perfetti to be under contract by this point in time, June 20th. There's no reason for that to have occurred. The Jets did sign a goalie to a contract. Isaac Poulter was signed. Just worth mentioning. Again, this is goaltending depth for the organization.
Yeah.
You surprised that there's been nothing on the Eric Comrie front?
Yeah. I mean, I thought he'd be the one who gets signed before. I guess is it in 10 days the free agency starts, or 11 days or whatever, 12
July
days?
1st.
Yeah. So I'm a little surprised, because I thought that they would bring him back. And again, like I said, if you look at just the save percentage and the goals against, not great, but I think he was plus 2.2 on goals saved above expected, which again just goes to show you the level of difficulty in terms of the shots he was facing. Again, what does that tell you? It tells you that Jets defensively weren't particularly good, and Eric Comrie was able to save put you in the positive from goaltending, from a backup goaltending perspective, which if you actually look at the rest of the NHL, he was actually pretty high on the list of backup goalies in terms of that. And also remember, Drew, to the end, if you're keeping Connor Hellebuyck, then Eric Comrie makes a lot of sense to retain as well.
Right.
So that I'm a little surprised. I thought that when they announced the goaltender was going to be back, Isaac Poulter wasn't the name, but he's a Winnipegger, and I think he adds good depth. He was well liked with the Moose organization. Spent most of his time in the ECHL. So He has 80 AHL games under his belt. I know people are talking about whether Milic or DiVincentis is ready to be up with the big club next year. I do not think that that's the case. Dominic DiVincentis had a phenomenal playoffs for the Manitoba Moose. Thomas Milic had a great regular season for the Manitoba Moose, right. But I think that both those players need. I know that folks are saying that you want to see one guy raise up to the opportunity to be able to be the starter next year and get the bulk of the work, and then earn his shot with the Jets the following year. But to me, it's not a function of whether they can be a backup in the NHL. It's whether they could be a starter if the backup gets injured, and I don't think that's the case.
There's no reason to rush either of their developments. For all of a sudden, an organization that slow plays everything, you're not going to rush Milic or DiVincentis all to the NHL level before it's necessary. I mean, just look, there's a checklist the Jets obviously have to be working through. I agree with you. I thought Comrie would have been done. Maybe, who knows? Again, and on the list of priorities, backup goaltender is not right at the forefront. There's so many other larger holes for this organization that need to be filled. And I know, all the time and all the effort and all the oxygen is used up on second line center. But that defense right now is atrocious. I'm sorry. Maybe atrocious is a little strong.
Yeah.
But the amount of hope that is attached to the Jets' plans for defense for next year, besides Josh Morrissey, and you like Morrissey and you like Sandberg. Pionk was injured and bad last year. DeMello was not good last year. Sal Monson's injured. Fleury is a depth defenseman.
Isaac Phillips is a guy who I don't think gets talked up enough about. I thought, look, if you would have asked me if I would be mentioning Isaac Phillips when he was first traded for Dmitry Kuzmin back in the day, Drew, I would not have said that because I thought he had a tough transition to Winnipeg, or to the Moose, I should say. But, he got some games up in the NHL. He's obviously played some games in the NHL with Chicago. I'm just saying he's a guy he's a left shot guy who could potentially be
about 7th through 10th defenseman. Fine. I don't have a problem with that. I'm talking about your top 6 defense.
Well, I'm saying that you could. He's a bigger guy too, and he can move. So, I mean, I'm just saying that Drew, we're talking about finding opportunities, and he may be a guy who finds an opportunity to excel in a 6 role. That's all I'm saying. That's why I'm saying, like, you're talking about top 6. I'm saying, like, maybe Isaac Phillips, is a guy who can do that. I'm not saying it's 100% the case. I'm just saying that he may be a guy who's able to kind of, take that step forward.
Connor Hellebuyck talked about tips and screens and everything else. And that's not solely on defensemen. That's on forwards as well. But boy, oh boy, if he thought that he saw a lot of tips and screens last year behind this defense, I don't know that that's changing anytime soon, given their current construction. I mean, that is, to me, I know second line center is ad nauseum, but this defense to me screams that it's going to be a huge problem for the Winnipeg Jets. That's to me where I sit right now on June 20th. Unless there's reinforcements coming, you have a serious you have a serious problem with your back end for next season for the Winnipeg Jets.
Drew, there could be a Logan Stanley re-signing on July 1st.
I hope Logan Stanley gets all the money in the world.
Yeah.
I don't think that it should be coming from the Winnipeg Jets organization, but stranger things have happened.
No, I mean, like I said, this is why, like I said, I just think Phillips is, you kind of tend to forget about these guys sometimes who maybe become journeymen in the NHL or through pro hockey. And I just think he's probably a player that should bear mentioning or should bear watching potentially for next season.
Totally. Fair enough. Good insight. You watch him more than anyone else does. So we will take that and we will observe it throughout training camp, and we will observe it as a part of our discussions over the next number of weeks and so forth.
One other note I should mention is Jets prospect Owen Martin, the 2025 third rounder. He is heading the NCAA route. That is courtesy of our friend Brad Schlossman of the Grand Forks Herald. He is not doing that this year, though. He will be doing that next year. So he's going to go back to Spokane, play for the Chiefs one more season, and then head to Denver. No, where's he headed? No,
Colorado College.
Colorado College. I was going to say, I know it's in the state of Denver, Colorado College.
No,
so
the
he'll
state
be
of
up.
Colorado.
Sorry, what did I say? The state of Denver?
Yeah,
Sorry,
the state of Denver.
State of Colorado, play for Colorado College. So that's the
go.
Oakbank product. He'll be heading over to the college route.
So you can keep that in the back of your mind for your 2027, 2028 NCAA fantasy drafts.
Yes.
That's where you can file that one away. Dave M, keeping everybody abreast of everything going on with the prospects. That's it for us.
You don't want to play the Ehlers clip, Drew?
Oh yeah, sure. We'll play the Ehlers clip.
I think
okay. Here's a minute of Nikolai Ehlers thanking Winnipeg. Here you go.
Some notes today for some Jets fans, and they said, "Let Nick know we're really happy for him." You know, Winnipeg was where he started. It's where you grew. Do you have a word for the fans of the Jets who supported you?
I love being in Winnipeg. This was the dream there. I'm obviously sad I wasn't able to do that with the guys in Winnipeg and the city of Winnipeg. They hold a special place in my heart. I've said that. Their family, the whole organization gave me a shot at playing in the NHL, and you know, I couldn't be more thankful. So it was, like I said, it was a hard decision this summer, but I loved my 10 years in Winnipeg, and you know, it was a special time.
Won't pretend to say that we know Nikolai Ehlers beyond the relationship that we have, media player, but by all accounts, he was a solid dude, and you sort of saw it there in that clip that he does have a soft spot for the city of Winnipeg, and I know that a lot of people in Winnipeg were happy for him. He gave it his all here in Winnipeg, took the team as far as he could, as far as the organization would maybe let him in terms of the role. And I don't know anybody that was upset in watching him be one of the Stanley Cup champions at the end of this season.
It's funny, Drew, because that happened after our last show, and it feels like it already happened a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, there was, look, let's be realistic. For Nikolai Ehlers, there was a lot of excitement in this market. For Seth Jarvis and his all Canadian boys are great Canadian boys. And of course, even a Jordan Martunek, who is born in Brandon. I believe he was raised in Alberta, but born in Brandon, so we can claim him as a Manitoban. And I think there was a lot of excitement in that regard for that organization, even though obviously Vegas had a lot more Manitobans associated with that hockey club. So a lot of excitement for Nikolai Ehlers and the Carolina Hurricanes. From folks in this market, I thought.
They're having their parade right now in Raleigh. So the celebration, I'm sure, has been going on all week, and maybe the bender will begin to wrap up after they have the parade, the Stanley Cup parade. But good for the Carolina Hurricanes, a likable group of guys, led certainly by what I would describe as one of, if not the best head coach in Rod Brindamore in the NHL as well. So kudos to them. Kudos to that whole organization for job well done.
And it was funny, Drew, just quickly, but looking at Rod Brindamore when he raised the Stanley Cup as the captain of the Carolina Hurricanes like 20 years previously, I'm like, has this guy aged a minute? He's still ripped, and he doesn't look like he's aged a second. It was absolutely hilarious. So he is a phenomenal coach. He obviously, and look, the Carolina Hurricanes are going to be a good hockey team for years to come. Because not only do they have almost all these guys signed, especially when they buy out
Kotkaniemi. Yeah.
So they're going to buy him out, and I think they've got a ton of draft capital over the next couple of years. So Carolina is going to be a very good team in the East. And I just think that, it's just going back to Ehlers quickly, Drew. Jets fans, I mean, by this time next week, now, of course, we have a live show on Friday, and I'm sure you're going to plug that before we end off. But this time next week, we'll know who the Jets have drafted, if they've drafted that the 8th overall pick. And I do wonder if, similar to Nikolai Ehlers' draft in 2014, the Philadelphia draft, if Jets fans who were I would say there were a lot of Jets fans laser focused on Nikolai Ehlers. I wonder if the laser focused Jets fans on Viggo Bjork will be right come next Friday night.
See if he's still there. That's why we're 6 days away. We'll find out. We'll be there Friday night. Downtown Winnipeg, live broadcast of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. If you're in the arena, join us there. If you're not, join us here on the YouTube channel, as we will have live day one, night one, round one coverage of the NHL Draft. Big thanks to my colleague Dave Minuk. Big thanks to Danielle Bain of TSN. Big thanks to all of our sponsors for making this show a possibility. Our friends at Play Now, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Holt Dental, City Place, Wheatland Hockey, and of course, Boston Pizza. Support all these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. If you haven't already done so, folks, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, tell your family the best place to be Saturday mornings. This coming Friday night, after each and every Winnipeg Jets game, is the Illegal Curve YouTube channel. IllegalCurve.com has plenty of Jets coverage. Head over there for whatever you need. Until Friday night, for Dave Minuk, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone. We'll see you on Friday night.